I'm Margaret Wakefield Lister, President of the Vermillion Historical Society. In partnership with the Vermillion History Museum and the Ritter Public Library, we welcome you to our program, Remembering Crystal Beach Park. We are videotaping this program and ask you to silence your cell phones. We are selling the Historical Society's 2024 calendar, featuring the history of Crystal Beach Park with many photos that you're going to see tonight. Calendars are $5 and may be purchased after the program or at the Vermillion History Museum or Brommer's Chocolates. We would like to mention that the Vermillion History Museum has a display of photos in the lobby of the library. These photos were printed from glass negatives from the 1900s to the 1950s. And now I'd like to welcome the Calvert sisters, Marlene Calvert.
Sandra Miller. This is a beautiful crowd. It's just like the first one we had down here was as many, I'm sure, as many, well, really, I think more this time. So, and we hope you enjoy every bit of it as we will. And I have all these times we've been able to do it. Sandra, did you have?
Okay, I too would like to thank everybody for coming because Crystal Beach Park is dear in our hearts. And it's nice to see that there are other people that have that same feeling as we do. And to come back into Vermillion, when I walk over on the grounds and see the pylon for the Tumblebug, and I hope you have seen it yourselves, but it's got the plaques on for things that had happened at the during the years that we were involved. So thank you so much for coming. Okay, am I starting? Okay. Our book, Memories of Crystal Beach Park, Vermillion, Ohio, was written to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the beginning of the park, and that was in 1907. And I was thinking of another date. And at the top of the picture here, it says, once you've made memories, they aren't easily taken away. And that's how I feel about Crystal Beach. And then when I was making the beginning of the cover of the book, I thought about, you can dust off your memories. Some of you may have of the park, or you can have you become aware of some of Vermillion history that you may not have known about. So we're hoping that this will dust off the ones that you do know too. All right, the second. This picture is in 1854. George Shattuck purchased 42.5 acres of land for a wonderful sum of $12.75. The property was located along Lake Erie from the Erie and Lorain County line, extending west to what is now Nokomis. It is still Nokomis, isn't it? Because I haven't been here for a long time. The early advertisement shows the entrance on the left and the original stagecoach house on the right. About 1874, Shattuck began letting travelers who stopped at the stagecoach house take their picnics to the Hollow and onto the beach. Soon, the area became known as Shattuck's Grove. This home was called the Stagecoach House. Get my vowels together here. In 1906, it became the home for our grandparents, George and Josephine Blanchett, and their mother, Thelma. After 1907, it was used as a tourist home and then a two-family rental property. This is called a tent carousel. One of the early attractions to Shattuck's Grove was this tent carousel about 1898. The horses moved in a rocking back and forth motion rather than the up and down that we probably were used to. There was also a shooting gallery. Later, a roulette wheel was added. The Grove was sometimes referred to as Little Monte Carlo. Shattuck's Grove is becoming more popular, as shown by the increase of horses and buggies. The good old days.
This is George Blanchett, our grandfather. He had bought Shattuck's Grove in 1906. And before this, he had been the owner of a bar and grill on Broadway and Lake Road in Lorraine, where Heilman's Restaurant, if any of you remember, used to be. He also owned and operated a picnic and boat area west of Lorraine now, known as Beaver Park. Our grandmother, Josephine, is credited with naming the park. She and George were walking along the beach where she picked up a handful of sand, and while letting it sift through her fingers, she remarked, "My, it looks like crystal," and thus the name Crystal Beach was born. Our mother, Thelma, took care of all the bookkeeping for the park, as well as working in the office during the summer sessions. Since we lived in the house at the park, she oversaw any daily needs. Our dad, Jim, was a teacher and coach at Vermillion High School from 1929 to 1944, later becoming a teacher and coach at Euclid High School until 1969 in Euclid, Ohio. He ran the rocket ships in the summer and helped take care of the grounds at the park. Our aunt, Eleanor, and Jimmy Ryan, well, as it was, Thelma and Eleanor were sisters, and they co-owned with their with their mother, Josephine, for a while until she passed away in September of 1952. Eleanor and Jimmy and Tom, their son, lived in Lorraine, but during the summer would spend weekends at the park. She worked in the office, handled the ads, and made many beautiful posters announcing the bands that played at their ballroom each weekend. Jimmy became manager in 1939 after George passing in December of 1938. Previously, Jimmy had been a Lorraine policeman and later the Lorraine safety director. Oh, here we are, in our early years. This shows us in our side yard of between the dance hall and the house with our little collie puppies named Laddie and Lassie, what else? This was around 1948. As you see, we have grown up. You want to take that one?
This shows us in the first talk by Annie Eleanor about the park, and that was in 1993.
Oh, I don't think I have the right one.
Oh, no,
No. It's number 11.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
There's a
should have looked. I didn't see any Elmer in there. I was, all right, go Jim, you're on.
I'm sorry, I'm like to laugh.
We've started already, we've only got to the third page.
Anyway, it was 1993, and it was held in the old high school on Route 60. What's interesting here is that that particular talk that Anna Eleanor did was what spurred us on to do the book, because I know Marlene and I were talking, and I said, I didn't know she had all that information. My gosh, we could do a book. And so, thank you, Auntie Eleanor. Our home was built in 1907 by Dave Miller of Vermillion. George, Josephine, and Thelma had moved into the home before the grand opening of the park. The opening was on May 30th, 1907. It had 15 rooms, 5 bedrooms, and interior woodwork that was made of black walnut. There were porches located in the front of the house, a side porch off the office, and one off of the kitchen. The first 2 porches offered many opportunities for memories of watching guests arrive for picnics and for listening to the big bands play their wonderful music next door. I remember sitting on the porch that was at the office with a swing with my grandmother when I was little, and we would listen to the bands play, and you'd see the lights and the crystal ball turning, and it was just wonderful. We had a drive-through garage, and fortunately it had a door on each side, so we could drive through. But anyway, the cars could come in through, and they could exit through the back, and they would have a driveway that went right into the park. So that was a nice way for visitors to come who wanted to go to the park for us. I mean, people that we knew. That we didn't let everybody drive through our garage, just to make that clear.
We had to make sure that they were all coming in the front and going out the back, so we didn't have any accidents. At one point in the garage, when I was young, and Sandra was even younger, but she used to always get to the parties there, but we had a Halloween party in the garage, and she would always come into all the different parties. All of a sudden she appeared, you know. It was fun.
And you were never nasty to me. I think Mother had a hand in that.
Yeah.
No, she was a good sister.
This is one we don't remember, but this was early. Go ahead, Tanner.
This was an early entrance to the park, about 1911. It was located on the west side of the property. And we didn't have later on, that sign disappeared. We had the sign on the side because, I'm not sure.
It was right, it was facing out, but the sign that most of you people are used to was on the side right next to Nokomis. But this was also at Nokomis, at the entrance where you came in too. But it was turned facing out to the road at the time. And
An early attraction was the beer garden. This photo was about 1906. The beer garden continued a while after our grandparents purchased the Shattuck Grove. It was located in what was known as the Hollow. The term beer garden originated in Germany during the 19th century. It referred to an open-air area where beverages and food were sold. So you can see it's definitely an open air. And they were, you could walk around and they weren't congested, well, not too congested. The beer garden was remodeled into the dance hall, and this was still down in the hall. Some of the dances popular at that time were square dances, waltzes, the two-step, and schottisches. I have no idea what a schottisch is. What? Okay. But I should have looked that up so that I could know that. The dining hall was built in the hollow next to the beer garden. And you can see the words dining hall, so that's good. Lots of big trees. We had lots of good trees.
It's called the Park of a Thousand Trees.
Yes.
They also had outdoor attractions. Free entertainment was frequently offered to the park visitors. They had them throughout. They even had one back when we were young. That was a tight wire. You remember, Carol?
The great.
The Great Eugene.
Eugene.
She remembered. Great Eugene.
Yes.
And he walked the tightrope
Yeah.
and stuff, so.
And it was up pretty high, as I recall.
Yes, very high. This is a picture of the workers, some of the workers that were at the park at the time. Those who worked at the park were members of our own family as well as many families from Vermillion and surrounding areas. Often there were second and third generation family members who participated in the daily operation of the park. Our one cousin, Carl Lesher, has his arm out by the, I don't know, I think he's a policeman over here. And our grandfather is right down here with a hat. And I know there's other ones.
There's two other cousins. There's one in the bottom, first row, the girl, that was a cousin from,
Yeah.
and they came from Millersburg. They were from Millersburg. As well as next to Carl, the gentleman that has the bow tie in the second row, he was her brother. There were three of them that would come.
Well, we had ones that were from Vermont and things. There was a family, the Needing family, Cooney Needing was the one that worked at the casino and all the areas, and then there were a lot of the family members. And Murphy's came from Indiana. They had a stand. There was Pete Rose, who was from, I believe, from Lorraine, that did the taffy stand. And then the popcorn, which was good, and I worked at that stand. That was fun. That was Majorette and Meifert's, which lived in Nokomis. They had the skee ball. No, I don't think that was. He had the Penny Arcade part. The skee balls was, I can't think of his name now, but you're too young. All of you are too young. Wouldn't remember probably. This is a picture of our mother, Thelma, who has the bow, and she's with her cousin, Dot, and they are on their way to the bank. And if you notice, down in front of our mother is a satchel filled with the receipts from the day before, the date to the bank by horse and buggy. Down the hill, past Lagoons, the dirt road, it was a dirt road, and up over into Vermont. The next picture is a picture of one of our first picnics to the park in July 2nd, 1960. They came from Cleveland. It was the Cleveland Chandler Motor Car Company. They promoted their arrival by all driving their 7-passenger motor cars to the park. The company had only been in existence for 3 years, and these cars cost only $1,295. All right. Now, another way they traveled from Cleveland and the surrounding areas was the Lakeshore interurban, excuse me. And it stopped at the stop 128, which was up East River Road, or, yes, it's called East River Road. And across from Linwood, up that way. And the people would come by train and, or by the interurban, and get off there to come to the park and to Linwood. And that kept it so that they didn't have to travel by horse and buggy or auto all the time. This was often used by those coming for company picnics put on by their company for the workers. And it was very large groups that came. We had picnic places, we had the tables and benches and covers, because there were days that it rained too for the picnics. This is an example of some of the facilities. Shelters could be built to accommodate 15,000 picnickers, and there was ample room to park 5,000 vehicles. And then they were all, after eating and enjoying the rides, they had a bandstand that was located towards the middle of the park, offering a place for bands to play for the people. Much like today's parks, which have bands to entertain their visitors. This was during the picnic time outside. You know, over here on the end here, this was during our age too. This was the Penny Arcade with the glass area, but before that, oh, I'm taking a little bit of her. I think it's on one of the next page, but that was a dining room. They could come and they could eat there. There was a short order cook that they could get sandwiches and things. And then upstairs was the ballroom. That was what was first. Then it later became a roller rink, and all the, you know, those things are, you put nickels and dimes in and try your luck on all of them. And then the, what was that, you know, were pinballs and the ski balls. Boy, how long it's been since I used all those.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this last picture on I set here is, it's not the last picture, but is a toboggan that was erected between 1907 and 1917. And you would be in your bathing suits and stuff, and you just go up to the top and slide right down into the lake. And I was amazed. I was looking through some of the history along Lake Erie, and there were an awful lot of these that were set up all around the park, all the way around. And of course, a lot of them got washed away because of the storms too. But I didn't think there would be quite that many. I think I counted in the things when I was looking, were about 28 or 30 that were around the lake. But I was surprised. I didn't tell you about that.
All right. This I like. The people are waiting for a ride, or perhaps deciding. Because I know I would have to have some time to decide if I wanted to go down that slide. No. But that's because I wasn't alive. Yes, I wasn't alive. Grandpa had decided that it was too dangerous, and he took it off. So I think he did well on that. Yes. Oh, this is a view of the toboggan. Well, not the toboggan, I'm sorry, the beach next to where the toboggan was. And this was a big draw for the visitors to enjoy swimming and picnics. But take a look at their bathing suits. They are quite all different kinds, aren't they? The next picture shows the boat, which was called the Edna D. It gave rides out into the lake and was owned and operated by Jim Dahl. He named it after his wife. This was around 1911, and you'll notice that there are some smaller boats that were also available to rent. That would have been fun. The popcorn stand was always a favorite stop. Just look at the dress of everybody there. Can you imagine how cool they are? I just can't imagine going to a park and having the long dresses and wearing hats. But that was the way to do things. The next one is the baseball field, and that was near the county line, the Erie County line, and it was a really large field, and it was on the east side again of the park, and it was used. They had the bleachers, which I never saw, but they had baseball games back there, and whether the picnics used them or at times we had a baseball team that played against like maybe the bands or somebody in the community. So, and there they are. Our grandfather is in the middle with a suit on, the far left. Not too happy, I guess, but I shouldn't say that. I never knew my grandfather, so I'm sure that he won't be mad.
None of them were smiling.
Yes. This was the new pavilion in 1909, and it was built along the lake. This new pavilion took the place of the dining hall and the dance hall that have been located in the hollow. And it's, as you look at it, I wish I could have seen it because it really looks fun to go into.
I was old enough, I got to see
Yeah.
it. It was fun.
Yes, Marlene got through a lot of more things than I did.
And they still had the steps, and this part was the walk, you could walk all the way around the whole side of the building, to the back, to the other side, and they had 4 sets of these stairs. And they had, I wasn't there when they had the dances, they had turned it over into a roller rink, and I loved it. And then this was the Penny Arcade, but in the early time, you can see up there, it says tea room, tea and tea something, activities or something there.
Tea garden.
Tea garden? Oh, yes, there it is. Now we see the G, okay. And again,
And
I
I love this picture because of it's the upstairs of the dance hall. And look at the band that's in the middle. That's yours.
that's mine.
Yeah, it's yours.
I didn't see that. I only was there when it was over.
No, I don't mean that you didn't see it. I mean that it's yours to talk about.
Oh, it is? No. Okay. Oh, all right, let's go. This is Lake Road, coming into, well, there's Nokomis, and then right after Nokomis, there's the park. And this is Lake Road, the field across, and this would have been where the ballroom was, the new ballroom. And this is the picture of the house. And the house, the first house, the the first house they lived in, and this is the one that they lived in when they built the second one. And then that road went all the way to Lorraine. Oops. And of course, this is the dance hall. That was, the new dance hall, which was built in 1925 by Dave Miller, again, of Vermillion. And the opening admission was only 10 cents. It was really nice. The first band that played at Crystal Gardens was called the Coon Sanders Band. They are also called the Nighthawks because of their early days of playing late at night on a Kansas radio station before they came out this way. This is another view of the dance hall. This is, if we sat on the side porch of the house, you would be looking right at this part. And there were lots of times when our parents were working in the office, would walk from the house through this section and back into the office. And then later on, it was our church. But people used to come and stand outside when it was packed in there and stand up on the porch part and look in and listen to the bands. Because there was no air conditioning, of course. There were fans and the windows were open and they had screens so you could hear the music and everything. Okay. Here's a good picture of the inside. Now, when they first had it, these lights were inside these streamers, but they stayed for quite a long time. And the crystal ball up there was there for years until they took it down, and then it went to the Palace Theater and was in the Palace Theater, and they had, for special occasions, would turn on the crystal ball. And I know you could tell us later. Yeah, I know it's still there.
It's on display.
Yes. They said now they have gotten a new one, but the old one from the park is on display in the Palace Theater. So, but before they had any tables and chairs, you had to pay 5 cents or get tickets and drop your tickets in for each dance you wanted to dance. Then later, we had the big bandstand with the big name bands, and then you couldn't dance because there were so many people you were standing listening, or you just moved like this and tried to peek over to see who was doing what up in the bandstand. This was a band from Lorain, Ohio, and it was directed by Jimmy Doolittle. And most of these people that were in the band were from Lorain and surrounding areas. In fact, one of them played the saxophone and helped me when I was learning how to play the saxophone. He showed me some things, you know. I never got good enough to play in a band. I mean, I played in a band, but not like they did. This is a picture from the porch of our house, looking across the street of Route 6. And what's across our street now from Route 6 is the shopping center, the South Shore Shopping Center, and off to the distance is the East River Road. But this was the parking for the big bands, for the picnics, and they went all the way back almost to the railroad track. It was packed. And I think of some of my kids when our children and our grandkids went to the fair, and how many times we parked at the Lorain County Fair and got stuck in the mud. Well, we had the tractors out there pulling people out, and this one too. And the bad storms or things, but fun. These are the parked cars in the park, and that's right at the end of our backyard. That was the end of our backyard. We had a couple collie dogs over that way, and We had a few other animals around, but we could just cut down the backyard and go right into the park, and go on the rides and play the games and see what we could win. And this is the sign that we were talking about. The other sign faced, I believe faced out. This is the bigger one that they put in, that was, Nokomis was right on the other side, and that Krista was here, and the drive went in to the park. And this is one of the old, really old,
You're on the other page.
oh, did I go? Oh, sorry, I took your page.
That's okay.
Ads, the old ads, Crystal Beach, the park of 1,000 trees, an ideal place for pleasure, Vermillion, Ohio. Sorry, dear.
Finish it off.
I kinda got carried away.
I know you did, but that's fine. That's what we are.
Yes.
We just go crazy when we talk about Crystal Beach.
What number is this one? Shows it. That's, Crystal. All right. Oh. This is one of the ads from the Vermillion News. Well, maybe not.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay. All right, the Vermillion newspaper. Crystal Beach Park, 10 cents. And then Tommy Carlisle and his orchestra admission was $1. And Jimmy Giulio, I don't remember how much it was. I just went in and danced all the time. So, oh, here was another special parachute jump from an aeroplane to Lake Erie, Crystal Beach Park. On Decoration Day, May 30th, 3 p.m. What bros? I don't know. I don't know what happened. That was before my time. And this is one of my favorites. This is our mother, Thelma, and our grandmother, her mother, Josephine Blanchett and Thelma Calvert, in our backyard, and behind them is the roller coaster next door. And of course, at night, I could hear the roller coaster going up, and I could hear all the screaming coming down. And I always knew when the park was getting ready to open, because they always got the cars out to test them, to make sure they were able to go up and down the hills and stuff. So, but this was very famous. Again, this is the backyard. Ready?
Okay,
Okay. Your turn.
okay. We have gone through almost 3 pages. But that's okay.
All right. I'm sorry. Notice I was going by.
Well, you're going by remembrance,
Yes.
not
I don't
listening.
think I missed anything in here.
Yeah. Well, this shows a view of our back porch, from our back porch, of the Thriller over to the right. And it also shows a batting cage that offered visitors a chance to practice hitting baseballs. Of course, this only lasted 1 year, one summer, but still, it was rather interesting to watch everybody that tried to do it. This shows another view of the Thriller from the park. The cost was 25 cents to ride on this ride. That was pretty much the high of anything for any of the rides. 25 cents was the highest that we went. And that was either 15, sometimes 5. But now you look at it, the front and back seats, most sought after, were all of the thrills you would get. And they were good. They were good thrills. As the cars would go up this first incline, which is 61 feet, nothing like Cedar Point, but it was good. It was good. And they would reach the top in 1 minute. The cars would go as fast as 70 miles per hour on the dips. I have no clue what the ones do today, but I don't think it's 70 miles per hour anymore. And that click, 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 click going up was always fun to listen to. This was the view from the top. This is one of my favorites because I was riding the Thriller with my mother at the time, and she had her camera, and she took this, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world are you taking a picture of the yard over the, in the back? And now I think, oh, I'm so glad she thought of doing that, because that site is no longer, and it just gives you the thrill of what the parking lot was like at the time. This one is, as Marlene was talking about how they had to check over the tracks, I should say, the tracks. Every spring, before the park opened, the rust removing crew would begin their work on the Thriller. They would use one car and 2 oil cans as they made many trips on the gravity-powered ride to remove any rust that had built up over the winter time. When the car stuck, safety locks caught the car. The men would have to hop out from their side of the car and push the car with one leg in and one leg out like this. When the car took off, they would jump back into the car and ride along until the next stalling. This was done until there were no more stalls. Inspections of the ride were done every year. And if you look, you can see the guys in there. The one in the front is our Uncle Jimmy. And then the other 2 are Henry Rust, appropriately. And who was the third one? It wouldn't be Tom, would it? Yeah. No, I don't think so either. I can't remember. I think I wrote it someplace.
It was Art.
Art Smith?
Yes, that ran
Oh, yeah, he did the bug.
yes, he did the bug.
Okay. But that was really something to think about before you did it. Here's the pony rides. They were located in the front of the pavilion, and I wish that we still had, well, I wish we still had the park, but I wish we would have had the ponies when I was there. Okay, do you want to take the next one, Marlene?
Right. I just thought I'd add something here.
You gotta talk into your microphone.
Oh, yes. I was just going, since I got off the track and just did on my own there for a bit, but I'd see that I left out a couple things like who we brought, well, I should say Sandra brought the elbows with the band leaders and the singers for their bands and things. And the bands that came, I have down here, which I know, Les Brown, and he had Doris Day, who sang with Les Brown's band, Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, Harry James, Stan Kenton, Ray Anthony, Bon Monroe, Guy Lombardo, Sammy Kaye, Xavier Cugat, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and the singing groups when they started were the Diamonds, the Four Lads, the Kingston the Everly Brothers, and the Kingston Trio. And I did tell you about Jimmy Julio's band and the people that were from Lorraine and around in the area, so. but a lot of fun. And they would come over and change or take a break at the break time to the house and sit down. And when I was young, I remember Tommy Dorsey reading a bedtime story to me before I went to bed on the porch. Somebody else too, but I can't remember who it is now, but I wish I would have written it down, but maybe I'll remember. What's my number?
I don't know.
My mother told me that Grandpa Hall walked the whole family over there.
Anyway, when you talked
Didn't
about
have enough money to get in, they were charging them, so they had to go.
the
back.
bands, I love the Everly Brothers. My cousin Tom used to say, would you please stop this one? You know, because it was, I kept playing him over and over, the same one, and he'd walk by the bedroom and, oh. And I thought, why? But, yeah, the one that we also had, I think we have it in the book, was the Kingston Trio. And they were really something, and when we were sitting on the pop, see, I was too young to go to the big, for the big people. And so I usually watched from the side porch. And I remember seeing and listening to the Kingston Trio, and it was so crowded. It takes 3,000 people is a maximum for the
It was
dance
3,800,
hall.
yeah.
Dance hall, and there were people standing along the windows on the outside, 3 deep, listening to this, and I'm thinking, wow, that was really kind of neat. But anyway, this is the Laugh in the Dark, located on the west side of the park, near the steps to the lake, on the Nokotima side. People rode in cars that followed a zigzag track through the dark as scary figures popped out at them. I remember going through that when they had the lights on. And that was really fun, to see all these things, you know, because they were running to see if everything was working. I'll always remember that, they let me ride through. This was the next one is the Crazy House. People would walk through dark, winding passageways. A slanted room and moving floorboards added some challenges. I love the slanted room because you were kind of slanted as you walked through it, so it was cool. The kiddie rides are next. That's our cousin Tom with a big smile on his face. He's so happy to be there. What? Carol is Tom's wife, and we have his daughter and his son-in-law that are here, so we're happy to have them. So the kiddie rides were good. I like this kiddie ride because I had a crush on this guy when he was too old for me. So anyway, yeah, this was the hand cars, and they were really a fun ride for the kids to ride around. They'd have to pedal, turn this, as you can see at the top, they have a wheel. That was really good.
The thing was, though, if you worked there, it was a long ride for little kids. And then they'd be going, and then all of a sudden they couldn't go anymore, and they couldn't get it to move.
Yeah.
And you had to go run after, go back and push them in.
But it was a fun ride.
Yes.
And this one is the boats, which was also a fun ride to go on. And the next one is the cars. And you can see the size of the kids that are going in there, but they were having a very good time. I like the rockets, they were next, rockets. And, and the Caterpillar, which is a more adult ride. That was really fun when you got covered over and dark. You'd hear all these screams because people didn't know what was happening to them. But this one, oh yes, the threesome. This was the Bugs, and Marlene and myself and Mother, when we were on there. I forget who took the picture, maybe it was Art. But this was the earlier Bug. There was another one that was sort of like a turtle later on, but this was the first one. And a lot of fun.
The ones who have gone on it that were here, if you got a nice crowd and it just would throw you around in the circle till you were all piled up at one end and the one was hanging on for dear life and trying to keep everybody else in. And then we'd push everybody else back again and then they kind of throw us back around. But it was fun.
That's a good thing. How many ever rode the Bug? Anybody in this room rode the Bug? That's good.
I rode with you.
Yes. Okay, this one was a really nice ride for the park because you got to see a lot of the park. And the train depot, that was one of the first trains that we had. Now, I know that I have some people here that know the song. Would you like to sing that song? No?
Or the
Down, around the lakefront, through the park, and back again. A great big ride on a little train, only 15 cents. Over and over. If you heard that, if you worked on the train, you knew that backwards and forwards, because they would say that all the time. The next one is the Spitfire. I was never allowed on that one. And I know why. Because it was scary. But it was fun for a lot of people. And then comes the
didn't tell why.
Why?
Why was it fun?
Oh,
That's
because
Spitfire.
it turns around and around. And
Well, yes, it went around like a regular plane, but you could flip the plane over and over and
Oh,
over.
yeah.
Yeah, barrel ride.
See, I never went on it, so
I did.
I think I was kind of glad. This one was called the Bug, the Duck, I should say, not the Bug. For World War II, there were two local GIs who brought this amphibious duck, like this one, like this one. It wasn't actually this one, to the park for a summer. And they gave rides out into the lake from the cove that was located in the hollow. Now Marlene has a real good story that goes along with this because the two guys that were there.
The two GIs that had it, they had brought it back, had bought it, and they wanted to take it down, and they gave us, they had the ride for the summer, that summer. But one time they were coming, I believe they lived in Lorraine, and they were coming from Lorraine, and they were late. So they were speeding, and a motorcycle policeman came, and the sirens were going and everything, and they thought, well, we're not gonna stop. So they kept right on going, cut down the back road, back by the cottages, down the hill, and right out into the lake. And left the policeman on his motorcycle. He said, you can get away from me now, but not for long.
This is called the Silver Streak. I was not really around when that was here, but there you can see the cars that are going around, and I'm sure that because they say the Silver Streak, that they were going very fast. The next one is the Octopus. I did like that one, and I love this picture with the guys that are just sitting there looking out, you know, they're just, okay, how's it, everything? Yeah. But, and this one was, well, I'm nervous, but I'm gonna say it. The seaplane, it was called, Lindbergh on the side says, and this was the first one that we had. Then we turned into one where if ever you went to Crystal Beach, it was silver. You see that car that comes around, it's from Euclid Beach. They had the same kind of rockets as we did, except they had one more seat in theirs, where ours was only 3. But ours was very nice. And our dad was the person who took care of that. And it was, our grandfather had given that particular ride to my dad and our dad, I should say, our dad and mother. And because of work that they had done around the park this one year, so. Okay. And there, oh yes, there it is.
There's Daddy up there, and there's our dad up there. I'm trying.
Yes. It's your turn. Yes.
This is waiting for the ride on the Ferris wheel. They all wanted to ride the Ferris wheel. I loved every ride in the park. I loved the ones that were fast, the roller coaster, everything, and every other park we went to, it was always the fast ride. I did not like the Ferris wheel. Yeah, in a way, but I did not like to get stuck on the top. And I did not like it when I happened to be with somebody that knew I didn't like to have it rocked either. I said, you're not going to rock this. And, and I never did go on the one at Cedar Point, was it, that had the double? Oh, I thought, no way, I can't stand just going up on the one, let alone one that is double. So, but that's what they were waiting for right there. And sometimes they went faster and then it would slow down, and then it'd go faster. And then it would then you'd get stuck on the top all 3 places as they were unloading the other part. So I knew where I had to be. This was a lot of fun. This was called the Tilt-A-Whirl. But that really whipped you around too. Everybody slid to the one side and had to tuck your head down like this so it wouldn't swap it back, you know, as you went around you went around the track, and then plus it went up and down like 3 different places, so it really was. I think this has been around. I believe they still have them sometimes at the fairs and things too. Okay. Oh, this was quite a ride. Many people did not want to ride this. But again, I love this one. I went on 4 times in a row. And I didn't hold on. But there were times I could just put my arms up and it would hold me right in my seat. But, I don't know. I got asked out by a boy that was from another town I knew, and he took me to the dance, and we went out at the intermission, and I took him on that. Good thing we were just friends. I never saw him again. I think he was afraid to begin with, but he didn't want to, but I loved it, and I was going, and he's hanging on for dear life. And, but it was a fun.
What was the
I
name?
thought, what?
What was the name of the ride again?
It was called the Lupa-Plane, but they called it the Hammers. And this ride is the Dodgers. So the Dodgers were always fun too. That's where where we learned how to drive How many people learned how to drive on that? All right. And this is it was called the carousel at first, but then it was later named the merry-go-round. And we have a couple of pictures of it, the animals. Some of the animals were, I think the was in the, up in Sandusky. Yes, they have it up in Sandusky. And this merry-go-round was called a menagerie because it wasn't just horses. This one had animals. It had one of the rarest animals, which was called the dragon. That was still on the outside. We had a dragon, a giraffe, a lion. We had horses, and then we had dogs, and a cat with a big tail, and dogs, and goats. Oh, yes, the big rabbit, yes. We do have a couple of, yes, here's the cat. Love to hold on to the reins for the cat, but also grab its tail all the time. And then came the rooster. Oh, I forgot about the rooster. That was a beauty. These things ended up being sold. I thought most of the rides were all sold as a whole ride. But somehow or other, I didn't hear about that they ended up being auctioned off one at a time, and they went different places. And they're at some of the museums and some of the others, where they are really high. But these were all hand carved. They're all hand carved. Each one of them in the early. I don't remember who it was who did it, but it probably had to do with Gershovsville, one of theirs. The next, that was a goat. That was one of the famous ones, because they hardly had, the dragon and the goat were the only ones that weren't made there weren't too many of them made. And then this is the horse, one of the horses. Oh, and I love the dog. It looks like I had an Irish setter dog, so it makes me look like that. And the pictures up above were all hand painted too. I do have 2 of those pictures.
Because there are some at the
Oh, yes,
museum as
yes,
well.
they have 6 of them, I think, up there. But I got 2 from Mark. And this is one of the owners that had it. Anybody that loved to play golf, miniature golf, I loved that too. But we had a couple who was an older couple, and they kept that golf course, the 18 holes, was all manicured, and was grassed area, flowers, everything. It was beautiful, and people would come and play, so lots of fun. And then this is the end of the midway, where there was a road that went down the back to the cottages on the other side, and the merry-go-round was on the other side of the road here. Went all the way back to the roller coaster. And here's some more of the pictures.
We had a lot of people that came from not only around the area, but out of the state. And they would come and they would stay in the cottages all summer. And they'd have their places, the play here. And it was a really wonderful community of people that stayed in these houses, and year after year. And I appreciated it, and I'm sure that the rest of the family did too, because they were always wonderful to be around. We didn't have problems.
No problems. And here's a perfect one when we get to this next one. this was a bingo stand, and I by the concession stands too, but this next one is the shooting gallery. Now, they have shooting galleries at Cedar Point, but they're the lighted ones. But this shooting gallery was real 22 rifles, and they shot the real bullets. Because the back part, they had the moving ducks, the metal ducks, they had a bell that was behind a hole like this. If you could get it in that hole, it would hit the ball back and ring a big bell. And they had other things that you shot, just so many shots. We had one of the people that worked was the sheriff. He was a real sheriff, and unless he was, Paul Reese was his name, he was from Vermillion. And I believe he was a sheriff, but I don't know, I think he was a county sheriff. And so he took care of it, and then, another, but everybody was good. I mean, they just gave the money, gave the ticket and stuff, shot, laid it back down. Nobody got into any, I used to go and shoot too. I got pretty good. I could get that little thing to ring that bell.
Well, I think it was one nice thing about the park. I remember Mother saying something that she remembered her dad, and I think it was Elmer.
Yeah.
Elmer.
Needy.
Needy. They were really good friends, and when they closed up the casino at the end of the day, I mean, all the lights were off, and so they walked back up, like 11, 12 o'clock at night with all the money, and never a problem. That's something about our park that I'm really proud of, and so I just put that in.
Nothing was actually ever stolen. This is a penny arcade, newer, back in the 40s. This is 1947. Oh, and this was the last picture of it before it was struck by lightning. In the night, Ed Benson, I believe, was the police chief at the time, and he had stopped somebody out in front, and he had seen some lightning, but then he left, and then all of a sudden, the whole park, I heard the telephone, I had chicken pox at the time. I was told not to get out of bed, and I heard the phone ringing, and it was ringing, and it was ringing, and it was ringing. And I'm looking out my window to the sidewalk towards the roller coaster, and I thought, boy, look at that glow out there, what in the heck is that? So I said, well, nobody's getting up, I'm gonna go. So I jumped out of bed and I got out in the hallway, and there's a window at the end of the hallway, and it was bright orangey red. I ran to the back window, and the entire back of the park was on fire, and I can still see in my mind that fire was clear across the whole back of the park, up to the top of the trees. The trees were just all aglow. And then I ran back and I got, my mother had heard the phone, and they were tearing down, and they called my Uncle Jimmy, and we got 5 or 8 fire departments from all over the area, with volunteers and everything from all over trying to get, well, they really saved it from going up to the ballroom, and they saved it from some of the other rides, but the storeroom, they had the kiddie rides in it, and the airplanes for the rocket ships, and fortunately, my parents had just bought the rocket ships, and they hadn't come yet, so it was the airplanes that got burned, and all the kiddie.
Because this was at Easter, just before Easter in April, so everything wasn't, out there. But fortunately, the merry-go-round had just gotten, what was it?
They just tarred the roof.
Tarred the roof. And the merry-go-round was right next to where the concessions and the concessions were going to Thriller, and we were really worried about what was gonna happen. And fortunately, it started to rain, and because of that rain, because the fire departments couldn't get down to the lake because there was so much flames, and so we weren't sure how they were gonna put it out because they couldn't get the water. And fortunately, the good Lord helped us out, and we just lost, we lost the Penny Arcade and everything, and I think, did we lose the,
We lost where there was a storeroom there with all the
just the
stuff in it.
storeroom, okay. But however, this was April, but by July 4th, we had everything back in order. So we were able to go ahead. 1,000, I think,
No,
too.
no,
Oh, how many what?
no.
I don't think it says, say the name. No, it doesn't say on
So it
here.
took 5 hours to put out the fire with 5 departments, five fire departments.
Well, at least we know we didn't have 1,000 trees like we had before, so
No.
they called it the Park of 1,000 Trees. And so they made the new arcade was started, and it took 60 days to have it done by July 4th. And here's the new arcade, and it was not a double floor or anything again, and it was not wood again. So the games were on the left side, and then there was a jukebox in the middle. I love that jukebox because it was really fun to dance with. Although I never told my mother because she didn't want me to do that.
You're telling
But you know, I was a teenager, you know. So. Anyway, sorry, mother. But the new arcade really was fun, and it had food counter just like the other one had, and it shows you what behind the arcade. This was really nice for people when they came. Again, no admission. The only thing you didn't have to buy any food, because if you brought your own food, that was what was fine. And what you want to do is, the only thing is to pay for the rides that you're going on. So it was pretty good. You didn't have to pay for parking. This back of the arcade, you can see the train down around the lake front. Anyway, so this is the back where they had the playing baseball, and when we had companies pay for their people that worked in the company, they would come here and they'd have all kinds of games and things that they'd play back here. And you can see that the cottages were down by the lake, and they went over the crest which went down into the hollow. So we had, 15, Marlene?
Yes.
15?
Well, it ended up 18, that was the 18th.
Oh, because there were 3 that were on actually the park.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the cottages were good. And, oh, yes.
You recognize anyone?
Yes. It's a different picture from the popcorn stand before with all the long dresses. But this was good. And the next one shows you, we had some really great places for finding eats. And this one I loved. It was waffles and French fries and snow cones. This was a great one. Oh, dear. Forgot that one. I don't know what I thought of myself. I was in your picture. I smile. This aerial view, I think, is great because it shows the dance hall and it shows the rocket ships and then
That was a restaurant right
Restaurant,
there before
yes.
they tore it down and made it into the Dairy Delight
the, mhm.
Stadium. That was a walk-in restaurant. And they had the tables and chairs to eat at, but somebody had painted a dollar bill on the chair. And it was wrinkled and it looked just like a real dollar. Well, I think it was a $5 or $10. And oh my gosh, she pulled that chair out. And we were always trying to get it. And the little kids coming in. Then they made it into this.
I'm sad that Janice had to leave early. Janice's family had that particular building.
This is Larry Tesla, maybe some of you remember, he traveled around to the different schools and things, and he was down at Alberta with these animals and snakes. And he had this little lion cub that he brought up to be with Steve Clark, and he shared, and he did some stuff with it. But, and he would go around to the schools. This is one of my favorite pictures of the aerial view. Here is the roller coaster, and the house and then that was first lived in, then our other house that was built next to the ballroom, and then the ballroom, the rocket ships, and then, of course, the 1,000 trees covering all the other rides, but then that's Nokoma's over in there, and the cottage is right up here. And this was the Lorraine Erie County line, right here where the roller coaster went down where these last trees were. And another area view from another way when they started building the shopping center. And the motel is still there too. And there's parts of Vermillion, going into Vermillion.
And when we sold the land across the way from the park, we still had the ability to have parking when we needed it from them, so that was a good thing at least. And then, as the world turns, different things, this is where the dance hall was.
Where you have your Erie County Bank now.
Yes, the Erie County Bank, and that's where the house used to be. Isn't it something about how a garage or
This kind of hurt
a
me.
gas station?
The
Yeah.
idea that they tore down that beautiful house, I thought they might make it into a bed and breakfast or something, because there was a lot. But, another gas station for Vermillion.
Yes. Well, and then
What
here's,
am I still with it?
well, here's along the lake, and the apartments were put in back there. Oh, and there's the picture of the Tumblebugs pylon, the pylon, and that's where we were able to get the plaques put up. But it was really interesting because somebody who was working there wanted to know what that thing was. You know, why is that there? And then when somebody else, I forget who it was, that told him that we used to have a park here. And that's what the Tumblebug was attached to. And he said, well, gee, he says, are the people who own the park still alive? And this guy said, yes, they are. And so they called us, and they wanted to do something to the pylon. They wanted to put up a flag, and, oh, we were just tickled pink, because, you know, that was the only thing left. Actually, there is a smaller one that's to the west, And that happened to be where the rocket ships were, and that's what was used for the rocket ships to go around. And so that was our dad. And so we decided, okay, let's do this. And Tom and his wife Carol and the whole family, actually, we were involved with this. And we just thank Vermillion people for wanting to do this. And actually, I have to say it now because thank you so much for being still interested in it.
It's great having all of you come back and see it again and again. And new ones are bringing new ones too, so thank you.
And here's the, last people. Can we go back that one? Yeah. 'Cause that's the palace. How many of you were there?
This is when we dedicated the Crystal Hall.
We were able to have, I think Bill's was 1,700 people. And I remember when we were getting ready for this, and it was our cousin Tom who was responsible for being able to get this building. And I remember the day that we were signing the books, and he said, I don't know. He said, I don't know how many people are gonna come. Maybe we might even just get 50. And he was really worried about it. And I said to him, I said, I don't think so. I think people are gonna come out. And I was so glad that it worked because he had put so much into it. It was funny because, what?
They were asking what year, 2007.
2007, because that's when we opened, but, I remember when we were thinking about it, Marlene and I were thinking about it after Annie Allen's talk. And finally, I said, I wanna do this, and let's get Tom involved with this too. And I remember he said, I don't know. He said, you girls go ahead. He said, I don't think I should, I don't know if I can be a part of it. And I told him, I said, well, Tom, that's okay. But your name is gonna be on the book. And so he said, well, maybe, I can help out a little bit, with money and things like that. And then I told him, I called him and I said, I've got some pages that I've done and I'd really like to have